Kimberly Reed, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Hello, Jonathan. Welcome. Thank you for having me. This is great.
It is a pleasure, and I like the energy. Today, we're going to be talking about strengthening our commitment to creating a more diverse workplace. And I'm just really thrilled to have the chance to talk with you. You're joining us from New Jersey. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And you have a lot of expertise in this area, so it's going to be a fun conversation. As we get started, I wanted to share Kimberly's bio with everybody. Kimberly Reed is an award-winning international speaker, author, corporate trainer, and diversity, equality, and inclusion executive with more than 20 years in HR, talent recruitment acquisition, diversity, equality, and inclusion expertise. Kimberly has successfully countermanded inadequate and or troublous diversity practices by designing, building, leading, and shaping dynamic, high-performing work cultures. She is founder and CEO of Redevelopment Group, a cutting-edge, multidisciplined diversity, equality, and inclusion solutions firm. She's the author of Optimists Always Win, Moving from Defeat to Life's C-Suite. Fantastic background. It's a pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with me or my listeners by way of your background before we dive on in?
No, I want to, well, you know what? I just lied. One of the things I do want to share about the book that is so important to me. 100% of the proceeds are going to two cancer charities. So the more books we sell, the more people we bless. So yes, Optimists Always Win is on Amazon and where all books are sold. So thank you so much, John, for mentioning that. And I love my work. I love what we are blessed to do every single day to really just make diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging a better place in some of today's leading companies and in companies all over the world.
Yeah, excellent. And actually, I wanted to start because oftentimes when we talk about DEI initiatives, a lot of people frame that acronym as diversity, equity, and inclusion. You very specifically diverge from that and call it diversity, equality, and inclusion. Maybe just speak to that for a moment.
Sure. So, and things have changed since then too, because we have another focus in belonging. So John, it's diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging for us. What I will say is that why many companies are not successful in this space is because they forget a very important part of the formula, and that is belonging. That means the B. The reason why we transition from equity to equality is the feel of the word. Equity to us and to many of our clients felt very money driven, right? Very, if you hire more people of color, there's going to be something affected by the dollar. And that didn't feel good for a lot of people, and especially in conversations about equity. Although that's not what the definition of equity is, but that's what it felt like in a lot of conversations we were having, specifically after the unfortunate murders of George Floyd and countless others. So one of the things that we said is that, and I've always felt this way, even in my corporate career in diversity, is that equality is the goal. We want equality in the workplace for all people. Right? Yes, diversity focuses on women and people of color. However, we also want to be inclusive in our work and to ensure that there is equality for all. That's why we're so intentional, John, about putting, you can't see it here really, a little bit, equality in the work that we do and why we do it, quite frankly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. That's interesting to see that difference, and you have good reasons for that. Let's talk now about how HR leaders can help their organizations strengthen that commitment to creating a more diverse workplace. Yeah. So, I mean, the rhetoric is increasingly there. I think just from a PR standpoint, most organizations nowadays recognize that they better say something in response to like the George Floyd incident or some of these other social disruptions that happen that people are upset about, organizations recognize, okay, we probably need to address this in some way. We probably need to, at least on the face of it, look like we are striving to be an inclusive company, so on and so forth. So the rhetoric is getting there. The problem is, in my view, we're often not walking the walk. So we're saying nice things, but we're not actually doing the things that need to happen in order to actually drive change and to disrupt the systems of inequity and inequality, and to really create a level playing field, one that's inclusive for everyone. So what, if I'm an HR leader, or, a leader in an organization doing HR things, what can I do to help the organization strengthen that commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging?
That's a great question, John. And I will tell you that there's a flurry of new DEIB imperatives, right, that have ranged from symbolic to systemic. And creating an inclusive culture is very important to the success of DEIB efforts, and will benefit engagement, innovation, and productivity. And I think that CEOs, HR leaders are understanding that fact better, right? Just because of the heightened awareness that we have in this space, right? Whether it was ignited, which I believe that it was stronger. It was ignited after the murders of George Floyd and countless others, of course. But diversity has always been important. Diversity has always and should be a business imperative, right? I'm not suggesting that to connect money to it, or people's, or executive comp, because we've had conversations about that all the time. But what I am saying is that I think that every executive, HR leader, needs to evaluate their executive team. Do they portray DEIB? See, the makeup of your executive team is a huge signifier, right, to the rest of your workforce. Not to mention our stakeholders, customers, partners, etc., the board, right? And it's because at top, and it's the top management of a company that speaks volumes, John, about the culture, right? So to foster a company culture where every voice is welcome, heard, and respected, we need to understand what does the company and what does that senior leader, because it starts a lot from the top, but the work gets done in the middle. We could talk about that too. But is that what is it portraying? What is the culture? HR leaders, you have to assess and have to understand what that is before you can venture in this work. That's why, John, we don't touch a client without doing a DEIB organizational assessment. If they don't agree to that, that's okay, right? We're not the firm for them. But what happens with HR leaders, going back to my point, is that most often employees quit jobs because they don't feel like they can bring their authentic self to work, and uniquenesses are not appreciated and valued, right? We learned so much from the Great Resignation, right? I mean, wrong era, Lord, wrong era, wrong book back there too. But, it's John, but we learned so much, right? Because, people initially, and this is going to sound like a total oxymoron. The Great Resignation was a good thing. It really shook companies up to understand why people leave, why people stay. And right now, why people don't want to go back inside, right? Because now we're having, now COVID is still here and alive and well, but companies are now saying it's time to go back. It's time, no more hybrid, no more virtual, we're going back inside. So I think it's a multi-pronged approach. And to kind of summarize, John, it is really looking at diversity and what does your company and your executive leadership portray, one. Two, it is about culture. What is the culture of the organization, right? And do you recruit and attract, I know we're going to talk about that, more people in a culture that perhaps needs some development, some information, some engagement, some innovation, right? Or some form of kind of revitalization of sorts, right? So, so I think that it's very important that, lastly, that HR leaders, CEOs, they have to identify DEIB as a strategic priority. If it is not a strategic priority, John, this work is pointless. Or to hire us or any consultant to help them move forward, it's a waste of investment, because it has to be a strategic priority in order for it to thrive.
There we go. I completely agree. And it's so frustrating, again, when you see the lip service, or maybe an organization brings in a consultant and they craft the language. I'm a believer in the power of language. And so crafting a good, compelling, inclusive language is important. But if that's, where it stops, and that's where that does stop for a lot of organizations, then nothing's ever going to happen. And you can hold a big retreat and a meeting and have conversations, and it might move the needle for a moment. But if it's not sustained and you just have that meeting and then you get back to business as usual, nothing's going to change. And you mentioned, for example, the composition of the board, the composition of the C-suite. These are the high profile positions that everyone looks to, and that reflects on the organization's commitment to diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging. And you can say all the right things, but then if you have a bunch of middle-aged white dudes on your board or in the C-suite, that says something else. And people are going to pay attention more to what you do than what you say, especially if the two are inconsistent. So the next question, you kind of already started to segue into this, but how do we go about then recruiting and attracting more diverse talent, especially if we're in the challenging position right now of not having a lot of diversity? It can be really challenging to bring in good, high quality, diverse candidates when they don't see themselves in the organization. So how do we start that process to start the pipeline and just reshape the way our organization looks?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked that, Jonathan, because there's this, so a couple things. There was never a war on talent, diverse talent. We heard that cliche before. There was never. I know pockets in droves of talented, diverse talent, top diverse talent. They dwell in my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, right? They dwell in my volunteer women's organization called the Links Incorporated, right? And the reason why I brought those two up specifically, because you're talking about women and then women of color, right? For example, there are 300,000 women that belong to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated across the globe. We have chapters all over the country, but you cannot identify diverse talent. That's the pushback, right? And I used to be I'm a retired recruiter, right? And talent leader. So I understand that recruiters are burnt out. Hiring managers, they wait to the 11th hour, and then they want to add diversity to the slate, all of that. I want to set that stage, Jonathan, because I'm not pointing fingers, but the reality is we've got to do better, right? So there's strengthening diversity in the workplace really means helping interviewers and hiring managers understand common biases that may influence their hiring decisions, right? Because people, and I'm kind of working backwards a little bit, because recruiters can bring talent to the table, no question. But when the talent gets to the table to be interviewed, they hit a brick wall because we're not equipping our hiring parties, managers, people who see this talent, right, for them to ask the right questions, or they're influenced by their biases as well. So there's a couple of ways, though, to recruit for a diverse workplace when you have assembled and when you have educated the interviewers and hiring managers, right? So I'm saying this is subsequent to that step. You got to go where the people are. A lot of times I used to tell recruiters, we actually, John, we have, it's called the Diversity Recruiters Innovation Bootcamp. So that's one of our services that we provide to organizations. And it's not a sell tactic. My point is, it's been very requested, right? Because companies are looking for this secret sauce of how to identify talent. So a few things though are a part of the secret sauce. I can't give away all the secrets, but one is you have to, go where the people are. So for example, if you are in Washington, D.C. and you have an office in Washington, D.C., and you have a strong accounting need, Howard University is a historically Black college and university, which is also called an HBCU. You should be tapped in for campus recruiting, for executive recruiting and experienced hire recruiting. You should be tapped into their alumni network. They have over 80,000. They're one of the largest alumni networks in the country for an HBCU. So you have to also review your job requirements. What are the job requirements? A lot of times when we start attracting folks, like I just gave the example from Howard, right? And we have these jobs because we go to the job fairs, we have these sessions, and we have the job requirements in front of us. However, they don't speak to the role itself. I'm not saying speaking to the person, but we don't have a good sense of what the role is, or what the trajectory is, or what is the rhyme or reason to this role. And diverse talent, this is proven, and this is also driven by research. They want to feel not only that there's a success blueprint, but they want to feel valued. And if your job requirements are not clear, and you're hiring a person, any person, but specifically of color, how can that person win if the job requirements are unclear? Also, you have to reflect diversity at all stages of the recruitment process. It cannot be, John, in the beginning, we're going to focus on diversity and we're going to attract diverse talent. But it has to be representative of each part of the process, from hiring, right? From, so it has to be very focused, and has to be very deliberate and intentional, your recruitment practices and processes. But more importantly, it has to be seen. And so a lot of times when diversity isn't seen in organizations or seen in the recruitment process, oftentimes you're not successful. The other piece to it is that diversity is inward. Diversity and inclusion is outward. What do I mean by that? Diversity is in our companies, right? When we start to hire, inclusion, your people, talent has to see an inclusive culture and workplace. When I click on your website as someone that I'm looking for a job, and I see zero representation of me, or your customer, or the board, or stakeholders, whomever, why would I want to go to that company? See, you have to consider standardizing not only your recruitment stuff, processes, interview questions, that's all good. But the entryway, what does the entryway to your company look and feel like? So you have to be willing, and we say this to our customers all the time, you got to be willing to throw your existing strategy out the window if it's not working. Stop trying to, okay, maybe we'll go to this school differently. No, you have to develop also an employer brand that showcases your diversity. So to recap, in the sense of what I would tell three things. You gotta look at your interviewing, the interviewers, right? Because that's one of the entryways into the organization. Is your culture ready for it? You have to ask yourself simultaneously with number one. Two, you have to go where the people are, period. Recruiters have to be more innovative, more creative. Leverage LinkedIn, for example. I know that people say, oh God, no. LinkedIn is one of the best places where you can get the talent that you're looking for, because you know the caliber of the talent, right? And 9 times out of 10, you know the caliber of the talent. What I also would say, you have to go where the diverse talent is. HBCUs, alumni associations, traditional colleges. For example, Temple University in Philadelphia, just using that as an example. They have a wonderful, not only alumni, but they have many different chapters of NABA, of the National Black MBA, HAKU, which is Hispanic MBA, right? They have all of these great chapters, but we don't tap into them, John, because we're not looking for them. So we have to do a better job with that.
And I'll just add to that. I think those are some really great strategies as we go through the recruitment process, the hiring process, and really integrating DEIB into the systems, the policies, practices, procedure, the culture of the organization. So all that's super important. Just one other quick comment on that. If you're looking to hire a diverse team, and let's say you're in your headquarters is in a location that, there's not a ton of diversity in the local population. Does that mean, that it's still fine for you to just have mostly like straight cisgender white dudes in your organization? No, I mean, the answer should be no. And the last couple of years have taught us many things, but one of the things it's taught us is that remote work works for a lot of people. And so if we break down the geographical barriers to hiring and recognize that, there are going to be great people, good talent, diverse talent,
yes,
that may not be in our metropolitan area, that may not be in commuting proximity. And maybe we want an all-in-person workplace or a hybrid workplace. But I would challenge you to think, there's lots of benefits to flexible remote work arrangements. One of the huge benefits is the potential for increased DEIB strategy and effort. So I'll just throw that out there as another thing to noodle on and to really contemplate. Yeah.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I would love to, I have a great example. I have a client in Kansas City. So it's tough because in Kansas City, a lot of students don't want, or a lot of interns, for example, because you also need to think about that, because if you hire folks from funnels of intern programs. So for example, Inroads is I am an Inroads alum. It is for people of color. Young people in high school, you start in high school, you're honors student, or you're a bright star, right? And you're part of this organization throughout until you graduate college. So guess who was the recruiting us from Inroads? PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? Then you had the Deloittes of the world. The reason why I bring that up is because sometimes you have to go back a bit to get to where you were just talking about. And with my client, one of the things that we are going to do is we're going to start a really robust internship program for next year, because you want to get some of those students that are graduating college and moving home, right? But they're moving home to find a job. Oh, well, come work here and we pay well. So also too, John, I think it's creating this robust mentorship program too. You've got to create a robust mentorship program inside your organization for organizations that are in a tough demographic, that perhaps doesn't mean that they can't be successful. It just means that they have to dial up their creativity a little bit.
Yeah, all great points, Kimberly. It's been a real pleasure. I know at the time I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can connect with you and where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Absolutely. Wonderful. So you can reach me. Our website is www.theredevelopmentgroup.com. We also have Optimus Always Win is available on Amazon. We also have a really great and cool website, www.optimusalwayswin.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm real simple with my social media handles. It's Kimberly S. Reed, all social media handles. And the final thing that I will say, and what I say, John, to every client that comes to us for the first time, be kind to yourselves. Right? I know that's not anything deep or very, or academically driven, right? But it is, you have to be kind to yourselves in this work, because it is a journey, right? But you also have to be real with yourself. Every company, when you're venturing into this work, or if you're in the middle of the work, and you're revitalizing your strategy, make sure that you align yourselves, if you need a consultant, with a consultant that is certified, globally certified in diversity, and can help you with your DEIB organizational assessment. That is the most important ingredient in any part of this work that you'll ever achieve. And the way to be successful is to understand fully where you are today. Remember, business executives, all of us, all over the world, the pandemic is proving to be one of the greatest leadership tests of our time. Diversity is hard, yes, but to integrate diversity for the ultimate goal, for DEIB to be in the DNA of your organization, you will win.
I love it. Thank you, Kimberly. It's been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Kimberly and her team can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.